Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. The Finance Rebel Show is all about increasing your financial IQ so you can become financially free and take care of yourself, your family, and your overall community. Now, we know in this society, most of us are trained to be consumers and super duper materialistic. But usually, being a consumer and super duper materialistic does not coincide with being financially free. So, in order to do that, you got to rebel. You got to take the reins. You got to take your financial life by the reins and dictate what you want to do. And usually you have to shut off being a consumer and being uber materialistic because you'll find yourself buying stuff that doesn't matter. And everybody knows that the more money you spend on things that can't work for you, typically the poorer you are. So I, you know, tonight's discussion will be about protecting your business from thieves. Now, I feel like I could have came up with a better title for that. Maybe you all can help me with that as we go through it today. If anybody has an idea or a new title for today's show, I would love to hear it. But again, like I said, today's title is protecting your business from thieves. So today, well, not today, for quite some time, I have been looking at these cases. But let me back up. I'm jumping around a little bit. For quite some time, I work with nonprofits, right? Just to give you a look into my life. I work with nonprofits, help them out with a lot of their monies and procedures and things like that. And a lot of times I consider it as part of my community service. You don't just have to contribute money, right? When you're giving to the community, you can give of your time, talent, or treasure, right? So a lot of times I choose to give of my talent, okay, and my time. Sometimes treasure too, right? Money. And one of the reoccurring discussions I have over and over and over again with business owners, especially nonprofits, right? Because I want you all to remember this: nonprofits are businesses. Nonprofits are businesses. Nonprofits are businesses, and they should be run as such. But one of the conversations or discussions I get into pretty often is the need for financial procedures and controls. And so with this one organization, actually with a lot of organizations, I've done this, right? Political organizations, when I worked on political campaigns, nonprofits, I usually institute a check or a funds request form. Why do you do a check or a funds request form? I do a check or a funds request form so you can have accountability with money flows going in and out of any organization. And with the check request form, you have someone financial looking over it, and then you also have a decision maker looking over it to approve those funds. Okay. But a lot of times I get pushed back on that. A lot of times people don't want to do it for whatever reason. They think it's like super uber difficult. They think it's like super uber hard. But in actuality, it's a practice to be a good steward and a good advocate for whatever organization, whether it be for profit or nonprofit, that is in your business. So I found an article, and I'm going to read this article to you. But I found an article that occurred where a lady got locked up for stealing over $3 million. Again, she got locked up for stealing over $3 million. Hey, Juanita, how you doing? Juanita, you know what? I owe you an apology. So, quick update, everybody. I was supposed to do a college planning live today, video today for my video today. Juanita, I got waylaid. I called an audible. I'm doing something a little bit different because Juanita, who is a fellow tax pro, she's an enrolled agent, very sharp lady, asked me and some other folks about college planning. And I promised her that I would do today's video on that. I'm not doing that today, Juanita. I had something else really pressing on my brain that I had to get out. Today's video is going to be about how to protect your business from thieves. And that's what I am talking about today. So welcome everybody. Thank you for watching it. If you're just now joining, I'm Kamari Ellis, the Finance Rebel. Please, if you find this information valuable, share it, like it, comment on it. If you know anybody who works in an organization dealing with money, this will be a good one for them. All right. So going back to what I was talking about. So I find it really hard sometimes for people to do this. And oftentimes I get called an asshole, unrightfully so, because I am a stickler for these things, and they're very important. You'll see a lot of companies. If anybody remembers Enron for financial improprieties, it took the whole company down. If you look at, there's many nonprofits that get taken down because they don't know how to control the money. They don't care about the money. They don't take on a stewardship. Stewardship is a very important word to me. With a stewardship responsibility when it comes to money. And it just kind of willy-nilly, kind of like Jack in the Box when it comes to the money. So I said, you know what, I'm going to talk about this. And there was a news report about a lady who stole $3 million because nobody was awake at the wheel and they kind of crashed. So I want to talk about that. So bear with me a little bit. I want to read this article to you. I promise I'll be as fast as possible, but I want to read this article to you, and I want y'all to see some of the shenanigans that goes on with companies that don't have proper accounting systems in place. All right. So the title of this article ran on Fox 29. It's called "Woman Accused of Embezzling $3 million from Chester County Township." Westchester, PA, a woman has been arrested after prosecutors say she embezzled more than $3 million from Kent Township in Chester County. Lisa Moore, 46, was charged with felony theft, forgery, computer crimes, and related offenses. So if anybody has seen anything like this, please chime in. Prosecutors describe Moore as a trusted employee of more than 20 years, y'all, 20 years, who stole money intended for employee benefits, law enforcement, land preservation, and other township operations. So she didn't just steal from a business, she stole from a whole township. All right. So according to prosecutors, Moore used the stolen money for extravagant personal expenses such as clothing from Gucci and Chanel jewelry, traveled to places like Italy and France. Moore was hired by the township in 1997. By 2010, Moore was promoted to township manager, a position that's granted her oversight and access to virtually all financial operations of the township. Now, I want y'all to remember what they just said, right? Moore was hired by the township in 1997. By 2010, Moore was promoted to the township manager, a position that granted her oversight and access to virtually all financial operations of the township, okay? Police were tipped off to Moore's alleged crimes in April. Remember, April. So she became the township manager in 2010. It is now April of 2019. So alleged crimes in April 2019 when he received the report from Capital One's credit card company, from Capital One Fraud Department related to Moore's money transfers. Ding, ding, ding. First thing that should go off of your mind. Why are there money transfers from a credit card of a township? So I want y'all to keep those things. Pin that. Further investigation revealed Moore engaged in what prosecutors refer to as a long-running, multi-pronged scheme to steal money from the township. Authorities said Moore sometimes had money paid directly to herself, but would not record the disbursements in the township's records. Other times, she would allegedly have money paid to herself, but mark the payments as having been made to known township vendors to sign off on checks to herself. Moore used a stamp with the signature of a township supervisor, prosecutors said. According to prosecutors, Moore alleged theft escalated over time. In 2012, she merely stole, again, pin that, she merely stole $141,000 from the township, the district attorney's office said in a statement. By 2018, her last full year of employment, she stole $410,000. Okay. Prosecutors said Moore regularly raised her salary by claiming that she worked additional hours, used a township credit card for unauthorized purchases. Hear that word? Unauthorized. Unauthorized purchases. All right. Credit card for unauthorized purchases while worth nearly $700,000 and created a phony marriage to defraud the township. The district attorney's office said Moore pretended to be married to Brian Gore, resulting in the township paying more than $50,000 in medical benefits. Moore is also accused of manipulating township documents in an effort to conceal her alleged fraud. So that's where the whole forgery comes in at. In all, Moore allegedly stole, y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this? $3,249,453. So she stole about 3.2, almost $3.3 million from Kennett Township over a 6-year period. It's probably more than that because she started in 2010. So she had 9 years running. But hey, we're going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She was terminated when the alleged fraud was discovered. Now, usually you don't get fired until there's an investigation because a lot of people are afraid of lawsuits. So I am betting they did a thorough accounting after 6 years, alleged 6 years of this fraud going on. So the prosecutor said this case is all about greed. The defendant was well compensated with an annual salary of over $100,000. So this lady made over $100,000 and she still was compelled to steal. All right. Allegedly. Got to remember that term, allegedly. I don't want any problems. Chester County District Attorney Tom Hagan said in a statement, but she decided to live the high life funded by taxpayers of Kennett Township. There is no excuse for such a blatant abuse of a position of trust, Hogan added. So that's the gist, folks. Lady stole $3.2 million, had transactions coming through from credit cards and all kinds of shenanigans. So how does one person steal $3.2 million from the government over 6 years? By the way, if you average that out, right, from 2012 to 2009, it's about $400 and some odd dollars she was paid, or she decided to pay herself. But how does one decide to take $3.2 million? By the way, the township has auditors, right? So auditors are supposed to be people who come in from the outside, right? They're totally objective. They're supposedly unbiased. There's no relationships involved to check the numbers. So the auditors got paid to check the numbers for 6 years while this lady was stealing for 6 years. Do y'all think she was a genius or the auditors didn't really do their job? Maybe it's a little bit of both. Who knows? But here's a couple of things. Now, going back to what kind of prompted me to even have this discussion in the first place. As I've told you, for many, many years, over many, many positions with different organizations, I always get pushback on money, on protecting the money, on being a good steward of the money. Many times people think that I put certain policies and procedures in place just for nuance or just to be a pain in the ass, just to be totally frank. No, I take this thing very seriously. And anytime the money goes awry, the first person they look at are the money people. So I always have a bullseye on my back and I always look at it like that. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times people don't understand money. And a lot of times people's fear of money or lack of understanding of money makes them a bit insecure. And then, because I've experienced this firsthand, and then they tend to vigorously attack those who are quote unquote in charge of the money. Now, a lot of times it's justified though, right? Because when you are in charge of the money, you are in a stewardship, right? Stewardship role. You have stewardship level authority. And that is to be taken seriously. I mean, the highest thing I can think of in terms of stewardship is a parent-child relationship. And anytime a parent really, not an accident, but really falls asleep at the wheel with their children or something outrageous happens, everybody's appalled. And so when you see somebody, abscond or take money out of the church, everybody's like appalled. It's like, how could you steal from the church? It's like if, again, somebody steals money from the township, they interview people, and a lot of the taxpayers are like, man, that's a lot of money. Some of the other people, I think they have a part-time mayor too. We're like, wow, that's $3.2 million that taxpayers are going to have to somehow pay back. Now, I'm sure they had some kind of bonding, some kind of insurance policy to cover it, but still in a pain in the behind. Nobody wants to deal with that. Who wants to deal with that? Nobody. So, when you think about these things, right, and you think about these monies, you have to understand what's going on. Now, I got so excited and distracted, I totally forgot to do the financial term of the day. So all of y'all forgive me. So today's financial term of the day is accounting. Kind of apropos why I'm talking about the term of the day, right? So accounting is the process of recording financial transactions. Again, the process of recording transactions. And when you do the etymology of accounting, it's an old French word that means to reckon of numbers or financial management. So it's an old French word. So starting back in like 1400s or something like that. And so when you think about all that, you're like, going back to the story, that is, when you think about all that, nobody was doing the accounting. At least they were not doing it adequately. Somebody was literally falling asleep on the job. So this lady got away with stealing almost $3 million over 6 years. Now you could say she made out for 6 years, but was it really worth it? Going to jail and then having to pay his money back, was it really worth it? And so that brings me to talk about short-term mindset versus long-term mindset. And part of the reason people are able to kind of get over in these type of situations is because people are lazy and they have a short-term mindset. They don't want to do the work, not realizing that in the long run, something is going to come back and bite you in the ass. And that's just the law of averages. If you do something for a long enough time, somebody is going to figure it out. Somebody is going to say, hey, this doesn't look right. Problem with that is that a lot of people typically get hurt. And so, I always caution people, and I always tell people, it's okay to be an asshole when it comes to other people's money, right? So again, I'm always in a servant's role when it comes to folks' money. And again, a lot of times, a buddy of mine said, you kind of low-key an asshole because I asked a lot of questions. Well, I was always taught, and I was always raised that a good question or two will save you a lot of time and money, headache in the long run. So never be afraid to ask questions. I ask questions all the time. And honestly, I've just always been like that. I've always been like that. I've always been inquisitive. There's been stories, I spent a lot of time in New York and the Bronx with my cousin would spend a lot of time with me and take me around. And I literally would question him to death to like, what's your plan? And like, he's at least a good 10 years older than me. And I'm challenging his authority. Like, who are you? Who are you, little kid? Who are you, little 5-year-old, 8-year-old? Like, who are you to question me? But I would. So, I think it's good to ask questions, right? I think it's good to have certain policies and procedures in place when it comes to money. I think it's good to recognize that when you stop asking questions and when you stop having policies and procedures in place, that's when money goes missing, right? It's really just that simple. And so when I was kind of preparing for this show today, I looked up some of these things out. There's a term I'm throwing around right now called accounting controls. It's also called internal controls, depending on where you're at, right? But every business, every organization, right, nonprofit, for-profit, they're all businesses. They all need accounting controls / internal controls. I know it's not sexy, y'all. I know it's kind of boring. But listen, if you're really serious about that life, about that wealth life, about leveling up, you have to understand money at a very, very, very deep level. There's no escape for it. By the way, if anybody watched my last broadcast where I talked about financial planning versus financial education, I got a call. I got a G-check from one of my mentors who is a financial planner, a very good financial planner. And he felt like I was talking about all financial planners. And he said, you can't necessarily place the burden of financial education on the client or the person. And I said, well, it depends on if the person wants to be average or extraordinary or not. Everybody talks about they want to be extraordinary. Well, if you want to be extraordinary, you have to do some things that are not average. You have to go above and beyond, right? So you got to study. Financial education is why I do this show, because I feel like there isn't enough real financial education out there without the sales gimmicks, without the sleazy tactics and so forth and so on. But just talking about the real hardcore stuff. Who's really talking about accounting? Again, it's not sexy. I will be the first to tell you that. But listen, accounting is the business of money. Accounting is the language of money. Accounting is the language of money. And if you really don't understand accounting, you'll never get wealthy. You'll never get rich. You'll never really be able to amass anything, a legacy to leave to your next generations. So just keep that in mind. It ain't sexy, but it's very powerful. Okay. So accounting controls are important because they help you control the money, right? Again, accounting is just kind of a process for keeping track of all your financial transactions. I say it's about categorizing all your financial transactions. The better you can account for and categorize them, the better you can plan, the better you can protect your money, the better you can grow your money. A lot of people don't realize that though. And so they tend to shy away from it because they feel like it's uber complicated. And I know I kind of got a cheat code. I got a leg up because my dad was an accountant. It's nothing that I ever really found sexy when I was younger, but it's absolutely necessary. It's so necessary to understand it. But an accounting control, let's think about it like this. You ever go into a 7-Eleven or a store, not to give them props, but just a store that carries a lot of cash, and they'll say there's less cash in the store after a certain period of time, like there's less than $50 cash in the store. That's an accounting control. If they really follow that rule, and they're doing that because they know it's a highly cash business and they don't want to get robbed, or they want to lessen the chance of them getting robbed. Let's go again with the retail store. The retail store says, you know what, we're going to go to the bank every day and deposit our cash, so we don't have a super duper amount of cash in the store at any given time. That's another accounting control. All right. Another accounting control I'm really, really big upon is, let's say you are a treasurer at a nonprofit or at the church, right? You do all the books. That treasurer shouldn't be doing the audit and or the taxes. Well, most churches don't do taxes, but let's say that treasurer should not be in charge of doing the audit for that church, because that treasurer has a very intimate knowledge of what's going on in that church, and they can easily manipulate the situation where they can steal money. Just being totally honest and frank. It should be an outside entity that's coming in and reviewing the books. Same thing goes for, let's go to a business. If the business, let's say that the business has a treasurer or a controller or a CFO, chief financial officer is what CFO stands for, they shouldn't be the one doing the taxes. Now, realize there's exceptions to everything, right? If you're in a startup, they're trying to save money, they might, have the CFO do everything from bookkeeping to taxes to, overall financial management. That's just what they got to do to survive. I get that. But that's not the best practice, okay? Also, if you're the treasurer in a company and you are to handle transactions, if they are outside, let's say, if you're writing a check to yourself for, let's say, a reimbursement, you paid for pizza one day for the company pizza party. Well, guess what? You shouldn't be the one to write the check to yourself. Your supervisor should be the one to approve and write that check to yourself for that reimbursement. Why? Who's going to stop you from writing double the amount of the pizza? Who's going to stop you from saying, oh, this one slice of pizza actually costs $1,000? I know that might seem like a great exaggeration, but when you look at some of these embezzlement and fraud stories, like some of the stuff is really crazy. Like the audacity of some of these people they're flagrant all the way around flagrant. So, You want to think about these things um, before you really get deep into business, and you always want to protect and think in advance of these things. There's nothing wrong with thinking of in advance for some of these things. Now, I see I got some questions and comments. Before I get to that, I do want to talk about some of the signs of embezzlers, or people that like to steal money from companies, right? So, intelligent and curious. Now, I got this from the Hiscox embezzlement study, the 2017 Hiscox embezzlement study. They do a study on embezzlement every year. There's something like more than $5 trillion. I mean, let me get that number right. There's something like 5 trillion. 5 trillion. I can't find it. I just had it. I was astonished by it. I was really astonished by it. I'll find it and I'll come back to it. But one of the things, so these are some of the clues of potential embezzlers. They're intelligent and curious. They're extravagant. They're egotistical risk takers. They're diligent and ambitious, and they're disgruntled. Now, disgruntled probably describes the lady who I just talked about from Chester County, who was the township manager, who stole the $3 million, Lisa Moore. So I'm betting she's been there 20 years, and she's probably disgruntled. So intelligent and curious, embezzlers often pick things up quickly and are eager to know how everything in the office works. Once they learn the processes, they manipulate them for their own gain. Number two, extravagant. Embezzlers will often flaunt their wealth. So watch for employees who are clearly living a lifestyle that is out of proportion to their salary. Okay. Egotistical risk taker. Rule breaker in and out of work and life. From speeding tickets to oversizing sick time. All right. So all y'all who be lying about y'all sick time, don't turn into embezzlers. Don't steal no money. I know a lot of y'all who like to steal y'all sick time. Diligent and ambitious. An embezzler may come in early and leave late, never take vacations. This can appear to be dedication to the company, but in fact, it is an effort to keep from being found out. Disgruntled. An employee who feels they are being treated unfairly may be tempted to steal to even the score. They feel like they're owed this. They may be unable to relax or may experience severe changes in behavior. All right. So all of those things are kind of the traits of people who tend to embezzle money. Again, but how could they have prevented this, right? They could have simply prevented this by doing a monthly review of transactions. They said there were several transfers from a credit card to a personal account. And what rule and what world is that right? Right? Again, if they just had a decent, and I understand that this is a township I'm from a major metropolis city. I'm from Philadelphia, right? Major urban city. So we have big departments, and even they mess it up sometimes. Philly lost $3 million. It was an accounting error, but $3 million for a couple of years at one point. But if you have good accounting practices, regularly routine accounting practices, how do you lose $3 million in your this small township over years and years? It doesn't seem right. Again, a review of transactions across the board. The auditor should have caught this as well, because they had an outside agency come in and do this. Now, if you ever look up Arthur Anderson, Enron, and WorldCom, they did a lot of the same things back in the day with the stock market, or with some companies in the stock market, namely WorldCom and Enron. So you can kind of see the patterns here. Somebody fell asleep at the wheel. Somebody, I guess, wasn't getting paid enough, or they were disgruntled too because they didn't check behind. Or maybe the auditors built up a relationship with the township manager over time, and she was able to coerce them not to report certain things. That happens as well. Happens all the time. So again, If you work at a nonprofit, work in a business, you have multiple employees, um, be on the lookout who's able to authorize transactions. There's, I'm going to say something that might offend some of you, but I think it's still good advice. Supposedly, Bill Cosby told Oprah Winfrey, always write your own checks. And if you ever look at some of these athletes who always get taken for bad with their money, a lot of times they don't write their own checks. So they don't have financial control or internal control or kind of control. And I just talked about that, but they didn't do all that. If you write the checks, you stop the buck. Now, again, I talked about this because, personally, I was a little peeved by this and I wanted to talk about it, kind of get it off my chest. And I figured it could be also a learning moment or a teachable moment for some of you out here that work with other agencies and organizations and nonprofits, because oftentimes I find nonprofits are very loose with the money, and they don't really account for it in the way that they should, and oftentimes they are upset or don't understand why they can't grow their programming through grants or other support the way that they should, because people pay attention, right? People pay attention to everything that's going on. All right. And so the other thing, just to leave you with in terms of accounting controls, is that accounting controls kind of fall into two areas, right? Prevention, right? Remember, I talked about the store not having a certain amount of cash. That's a level of prevention, right? Not allowing the person writing a check to themselves to authorize it, right? It should be authorized to someone by someone else, right? So detection is about transparency. How well are these records documented? How often are they documented? How easily can they be obtained or reviewed or seen? How many times have they been edited? Right? Are people going back? You saw that there was fraud in terms of documentation. So was the lady going into the accounting books and changing the records? I don't know. I work in QuickBooks a lot. There's literally a trail of every transaction in the file, and you can't get rid of it. So all of those things are very, very important to know. So I got a couple minutes. I got to jump off a while. It's almost 10:30. If anybody has any questions, Loving Like Penn said, right. How are you? Thank you for joining. Angela Mitchell, Mary Kay said, hello, Kamari Ellis. Hello, Miss Angela. How are you? Charlene Joe said, nope. All right, and Juanita forgave me. She said, I'm all good. All right. So like I said, I kind of called an audible. I didn't talk about college planning. I will definitely talk about college planning tomorrow. I promise I will. But if nobody has any questions, I'm going to hop off. If you got anything from this, if you know anybody that'll get anything from this, share it with them. Share it with them. Because, I don't want to see any more organizations get ripped off, especially for the organizations that are in my community, right? The Black community. A lot of times they do great work. A lot of times they do life-changing work. And any dollar that goes missing from those organizations, you're cheating a child a lot of times. You're cheating a battered woman a lot of times. You're cheating a potential genius in the making. And why stifle that? There's no need to stifle that. All right? So listen, there is a greater good at play all the time. So do a good job with your accounting. Don't skate. Don't be cheap with it. And what I mean by being cheap with it, don't skimp on it, right? Do it right. Get the proper systems in place, get the proper training in place. Review it often. Don't take it for granted. Now, if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to text me at 484-278-1357, 484-1358. 484-278-1357. If you have any questions for me that you're okay with me using on the show, just do hashtag Ask Kamari. Again, hashtag Ask Kamari. And I will talk about them on the show if I feel that it will impact, enough people. If you want to level up your financial education, your financial literacy, we also have the Financial Rebel Academy on Facebook. And so with the Financial Rebel Academy on Facebook, we talk about money every day. Every day I'm in there, usually, almost every day. I'm trying to be honest here. I don't want to lie. Well, almost every day I've been there fielding questions, having conversations. If you're really serious about leveling up your financial literacy, your financial education, you have to get around people who talk about it and live it, talk about it and live it all the time. Because you know what they say, the five closest people to you have the greatest influence on your life. And if you don't have anybody in your life talking about money in a meaningful, substantial way, you'll never really be able to level up that money. So come on over to the Financial Rebel Academy. Just put a search in the Facebook search, Financial Rebel Academy. There are 3 questions. Now, I've been kind of lax on this, but I'm in this whole guardian mode these days now, right? So there's 3 questions. If you can't answer those 3 questions, I can't let you in. And they're not hard, okay? So come on over to the Financial Rebel Academy, and we'll talk about money all day long. A.R. Ernest, or Arnest, I wonder how you say that, but says, thank you for your advice. Well, thank you for watching. Share the good news, share the gospel. For everybody, again, thanks for watching tonight. I am the Finance Rebel. You're watching the Finance Rebel Show. Stay tuned for the next broadcast. I do a video or broadcast every day. These will also soon be available on podcasts, so you can listen to you as you come and go. But I'll be back tomorrow. Not sure what time, but I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. See y'all later.